In the Torah portion, Bo, the text presents us with the final 3 plagues that God inflicted upon Egypt, culminating the devastating death of the firstborn. The Israelites are told to mark their doorposts with the blood of a lamb to protect their homes, and the night becomes one of death, darkness, but also deliverance. Perhaps the most significant part of the Torah portion lies not in the plagues themselves, but in the way the events are going to be remembered and how we are commanded to remember this. This is where the power of memory becomes central to our understanding of the collective experience of the Jewish people. In the Haggadah, when we gather around the Seder table on Passover, one of the most memorable characters is the Rasha, the wicked son. He asks, "What is this service to you?" To you, not to him, to you. His question is more than a simple inquiry. It's a rejection, an exclusion of himself from the collective narrative. In asking, "What is this to you?" he distances himself from the Jewish people, from the shared memory of our ancestors' suffering and their redemption. He does not see himself as part of the story. He's opting out of the collective experience that happened in Egypt. But this is precisely where the danger lies. By excluding himself from the story, he also excludes himself from the responsibility, from the moral imperatives that arise from the shared memory. Memory in Judaism is not merely about remembering the past. It is about identifying with it. It is about understanding that what happened to them happened to us. In this light, we can see the direct relevance of the wicked son's question to our own time. The memory of the Holocaust, which we marked this past week on the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, is not just a memory of a distant event. It's not something that happened only to Jews in Europe. When we say never again, we don't mean never again for the Jews of Europe, but never again for us all. We remember and we are reminded that it's not their tragedy, it is our tragedy. I recall learning as a child from my family and teachers emphasizing that the Holocaust did not happen to Ashkenazi Jews over there in Europe. It happened to all of us, wherever we were. If you were Sephardic, if you were Ashkenazi, it happened to all of us. 2-3 generations later, those of us living in the tropics or in American South, anywhere in the world, this is not a story about them, but it's a story about us, a story of a people as a whole, united in our suffering and in our survival. The same is true when we think about the attacks on Israel and the rise in anti-Semitism across the world. October 7th did not happen to some Israelis over there. It happened to all of us. The pain, the loss, the fear, the anger we feel is shared collectively. Anti-Semitism in all its forms is not something that happened to them. It happens to us. And when we understand it this way, we are compelled to act, to protect, and to stand in solidarity with one another. When the wicked son asks, "What is this to you?" we should respond by saying, "This is everything to us. This is our story. It is the story of our ancestors, and it is our story today." Our memory is a bridge between generations, and it's what binds us together in times of joy and sorrow alike. In Judaism, memory is not passive, it is active. The commandment to remember the Exodus, to retell the story of the plagues, is not just an exercise in historical reflection. It is a call to participate in the ongoing narrative of the Jewish people. The wicked son misses this point entirely. He seeks to remove himself from the narrative as though it is not his story to tell. But by doing so, he robs himself of the very thing that can shape his identity and guide his actions. To be part of the Jewish people is to embrace the entirety of the story, the good and the bad, the suffering and the redemption. We cannot separate ourselves from the pain, and we cannot exclude ourselves from the joy and triumphs either. This idea of collective memory is so crucial in our day and age, and we remember the liberation of Auschwitz and the horrors of the Holocaust. We are reminded that memory is not just about keeping the past alive, it is about keeping us alive too. The survivors, who are fewer each year, pass on the legacy of that darkness not as something to be mourned passively, but as something that teaches us the power of resilience, the power of unity and strength. We cannot allow ourselves the tragedies of the past to be relegated to other people. We must claim them as our own, because when we do, we are honoring the memory of those who came before us and ensuring that we never forget the lessons they imparted. Just as we do not say, this happened to them, but rather this happened to us, we must also internalize the wisdom that memory is not only about recalling events, but about actively shaping who we are. Every generation has the responsibility to ensure that the lessons of the past stay alive. In this way, we are called to live the memory, not just to remember it. In the face of anti-Semitism, in the wake of the tragedies like October 7th, in our collective grief and in our collective joy, we must act as one. This is the essence of the Jewish experience. We are bound together, not just by shared history, but by shared destiny. The liberation of Auschwitz, the memory of the Holocaust, the pogroms, the Inquisition, the multiple expulsions from different places through our long history, the invasions and oppressions by pretty much all the major empires in history, Babylon, Persia, Assyria, Rome, the Ottoman Empire, the suffering of the Israelites in Egypt, the redemption, these are all part of a larger living story. When we forget that we are part of that story, we risk becoming like the wicked son, detached, isolated, and disconnected. But when we remember that we are all part of it, we can carry that memory forward together. We ensure that the lessons of the past continue to shape us into a people that knows how to endure, how to survive, and how to thrive. May we continue to honor that memory, and may we never, ever forget that the darkness of the past is always followed by the light of redemption, and that as Jews, we are all in this together.